Welcome to
What's a block?
Triple Blockheads,
Back set. Block down.
the podcast for all things volleyball.
Blockhead.
Aloha and welcome to another episode of Triple Blockheads. Marc, Frank, and I am Makani, and we are the Triple Blockheads, and we're going to talk about club and the length of the whole season and, what are the good things about it. We have two completely different perspectives, and then me, I'm just going to throw in my peanut gallery as well because I see this and I see the impacts even from a parent and a family perspective. So it's evolved for sure over the last probably decade especially. Let's just kind of level set on what the club season looks like today. Let's start with first practice, kind of when that happens and then that journey forward.
Every club is probably a little bit different, but probably all starting around Thanksgiving. If not Thanksgiving, probably the first week of December. You're usually just practicing for a month, at least in the Midwest, you're probably practicing for a month. I'm sure there's other regions around the country that are playing their first tournaments in December. We are not. We are practicing for about a month, and then we are taking a winter break, and then we are coming back and competing probably the first or definitely the second weekend of January. And you're probably doing 2 tournaments a month, sometimes 3, depends on the event and the month, until you get into probably April. And then in May and June, if your team is still playing, you are doing some pre-national stuff, maybe playing in 1 event a month. Some clubs are doing more, so I can't speak for everyone. And then you are in the summer getting ready to play nationals. Now, that's if you are on a team that you decided that you're going to play on this team that plays that long. Some teams are not. Some clubs have regional programs or local programs where you're still starting in December, but you're ending closer to March or April.
So that's essentially 10 months that we're saying. Right, from November through July and nationals.
You're not playing through July. You're playing through June. Nationals is, if you're playing in
First
the
weekend.
first week of July is when nationals will end.
9 and some change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it starts all over again.
And then it starts all over.
So when are you doing your tryouts post nationals? And then what happens post tryouts until that November training block starts for you guys?
So we are doing our tryouts the first weekend after nationals and the second weekend after nationals. Those are placed there because of the commitment deadline that our region has for us. So new this year.
And that changed.
Yeah,
right?
we just brand new deadline as of this summer that's coming up is there's going to be a July 23rd deadline, and then there's going to be an August 10th deadline. Now, that is very unique to our region in that we're a USA Volleyball club. It is not like that maybe in your area if you're on the West Coast or if you're in Texas. There are people who run tryouts the same weekend that we are, but you have a 24-hour commitment deadline because there are no sanctioning rules. The governing body isn't trying to get involved in that. Within our region, and we think it's best actually for the clubs and the players. There's a balance there so the players can look around a little bit and find their best fit, is that we have these 2 deadlines. And if you're not on a team in the summer, there's a fall period as well where you can skip summer tryouts completely, and some clubs will allow you to try out in the fall. That's up to the club if they want to let you do that.
So what are you doing between the tryout and when you start practice in December? Are there meetings? Are you asking anything of the players? Or is it just go to high school, do your thing, and we'll revisit in 3 months?
No, there are distinct admin advantages to having your teams done early. Our national teams, we're trying to get them at the best events. It's part of our service that we put them in events that are really competitive and where college coaches might be at. Those events all open on September 1st. Most of them are open up while the kids are in high school season. So we would like to ideally put them in events where we know that most of our team's going to be available. Once you look into spring break, families are doing all sorts of things. So if we get our teams done early, we can start booking events. We know which events we're going to sign up for on September 1st. We don't have to wait until a fall tryout period and hope that registration is open. And nowadays, registration is not open after that first day. It's the events that we want to go to that historically have the most college coaches going to it and the best competition and the opportunity to maybe qualify in USA Nationals. That event sells out in the first hour.
Taylor Swift tickets. You got to be on waiting for it.
You have to be on. Yes. And so there's been years where our team isn't filled yet, and I'm just going to sign them up still because the risk of not having them signed up is not worth it. It's not worth what we would like to be able to offer as a volleyball club. So you get teams done early. You can start having your events done early. Hotels are done early. We are going to take that time to onboard our coaches better. So more coaches education in the fall instead of having to do fall tryouts. We can now hopefully prepare them better for the season. We can start our practices a bit early now in mid-November, and then we can take a longer winter break instead of having to cram a bunch of stuff close to Christmas and New Year's Eve, so we can take more space there. That's just us. Every club operates differently with what they want to do in that fall space if they're already done with their teams in the summer.
Are you guys offering anything between July and November to get in the gym?
Yeah, so for us, we own a gym. So if we want to keep our doors open and want to keep offering volleyball opportunities, we are going to run stuff. We're going to run stuff during club season. We'll do clinics before practices. We're going to run summer camps. We're going to offer things for kids from kindergarten to seniors. We might mix in a college showcase if it makes sense for our market. We're definitely going to provide kids opportunities to get better at volleyball if that's what our business is. And that's where every club's different too. Maybe they don't have their own gym space. Maybe they're renting out of a school. That's not part of their model. Maybe they're more just trying to be on the club side. And that's where, as parents trying to maybe navigate the club system, I don't want to segue too far off here, but every club is very different in what they're trying to be good at. We're trying to be really, 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 really good in our club experience, and we're trying to host really good events, and we're trying to host good camps. Outside of that, it's not something that we maybe want to be. We have the resources to be really good at. But every club is so different in how they navigate what they want to be good at.
I think what's important there is you have your standard club season that is 9 and some change that we talked about, right? 9 and some change months long, just pretty long. And then in that July to November period, you also have camps, open gym type of things, right? Lots of opportunities. Now we're talking about 10, 11 months, right? And high school season on top of it. My biggest issue with the length of club is what it's doing to overuse injuries by the time kids get to college. Okay? Just the playing on concrete with sport court over it, 3 matches a day for 3 days, tournaments, like the amount of pound that takes on your joints, shins even, like is just crazy and keeps compounding. So you're playing 2 to 3 tournaments a month, 9 matches over that time. A match that, so let's say, takes 2 sets. If you're an outside, you're jumping 50 times. So 50 times a match times whatever that is, you know what I mean, times 9, 450 jumps a tournament. You can do that math out. If you do that from 13s to 18s, that is so many jumps more than what you probably need. You know what I mean? And you can see the data over time since club has gotten longer and longer, kids come in with more overuse injuries. Like we have more chronic stuff that they've had before that I think 10 years ago when I was coaching, we didn't have those similar issues. So if the main goal of club and everything around our sport and what we do is to help kids improve in volleyball, grow as a person, love the sport that we're doing, are the goals of club volleyball still aligned with the main thing, which is the kids. What do you think?
I think it depends on your governing body that you associate with. So a USA volleyball club versus an AAU club or a JVA club, because they are kind of setting up the foundation of your season. They are, if you're a USA club, you're supposed to pursue
Going to
Going
nationals.
to
a
nationals.
bid,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The qualification
Wanna go to
process.
nationals.
And then where's nationals at? When is that? I think if the governing bodies move nationals, the clubs have no choice but to follow that. If college coaches stop going to nationals, the clubs won't promote that.
So let's talk about then what is the motivation for the governing bodies, because that is where you'll find some discrepancy, right? Let's talk about what USAV's role is in club volleyball. And it's to run tournaments, organize things, and take a bunch of money to fund the national team program,
Yes.
USA Volleyball. That's where your club money is going. When you pay for tournaments, all the state of play, all of that gets funneled back into USA Volleyball to help the national team. So already there's like a disassociation of what we're trying to get out of this, right? USAV wants to fund the national team and make the most competitive, win medals, best volleyball team in the world. That's their goal, right? If club volleyball in its like truest essence is about player development and human development, is the current format good meeting both parties' goals? I would argue no. And the fact that there is an 18s, that calendar looks so different, means that it could, you know what I mean? That 18s national being moved in May is huge for students that are getting ready to go to college. Maybe they leave early and they're not playing that 18s year. There's prom, there's graduation, there's all kinds of other life events that are happening where they allow kids to be kids, but it's like their last chance to be a kid. So here, take a couple months and then go to college. You know what I mean? Those things still happen at 17 and 16 and 15, right? You still want to be a kid. You still need time off. You need to get out of the gym. You need the social development outside of everything, right? Why can't we have nationals in May? You know what I mean? And what are the barriers to shortening that club season from a November to May and having it align more closely to the NCAA recruiting calendar, which that's a whole other thing, which I can go into in a little bit. But as it stands right now, our recruiting calendar is we can go out January through the beginning of May. Then we can't go out all of May. Then we can go out June into July. And you see nationals kind of fit itself in that window. But this month of May where I can't recruit, there aren't any qualifiers, there's just like pre-national tournament stuff going on. It feels like everybody's twiddling their thumbs for like a month until nationals happens. And then we can get back and recruit. That to me feels like a month of jumps and training where the law of diminishing returns has already taken effect. You know what I mean? I've gotten as much as I can per rep, and now every extra rep that I take is the marginal improvement that I'm making is probably not worth it for me from a time constraint anymore. Thoughts?
Yeah, that's really good stuff. I mean, on the admin side, believe me, we don't want to keep doing admin and for 9 months out of the year. There's a lot of stuff that goes into rosters each weekend, making sure that if there's a sub that's needed, like coordinating all that. There's a lot that goes into each weekend prepping for a tournament for all these teams. I think it's again, like every club operates so differently. If they have their own facility and if they run events in May, I think there's obviously a lot of pushback that comes with that. If you run a pre-national event in May or you're running tournaments in May, that's lost revenue for that club. And if for some reason that's a big part of their gym keeping their doors open. It's like, how do you make up for that? And what happens long term to all the actual volleyball gyms if you cut a month of volleyball out of their gym? And does that actually, like, very dramatically, does that mean more volleyball gyms close down? And then what happens to those kids being able to play volleyball? Very dramatic viewpoint, probably. But every gym's so different, so it's really just like what's the financial scope of each space?
So you're talking about it in the sense of, I need to run these tournaments to stay financially viable?
I don't know. We don't run tournaments in May, but there are in bigger metropolitan cities who I'm sure their rent is more expensive or their mortgage is more expensive. They would like to probably capitalize every single month and being able to do things. If teams are still in season, it's a no-brainer to run events if teams are still in season.
Yes. And I'm with you to an extent, but this is not keeping the main thing anymore, right? All of the reasoning you just gave were financial.
Yes.
From a club side.
What happens if a club can't manage their finances? What happens if
then they're going to fail?
They're going to fail. What happens to
businesses.
that? What happens to that space? That space is gone. And then what happens to those kids?
Maybe, or it gets bought out by somebody that.
Yeah, so maybe you see more consolidating of clubs probably in bigger cities.
You're in the micro of it because you're in the micro of it. You know what I mean? You are a club director having to deal with these things. I have the luxury of not having to view things from a what if this is me situation because I'm not in that space. The effect I'm seeing on the athletes directly, which are the main thing to me, because I don't have any financial implications into that space.
But I think but if you think we dig down, I think the July Nationals thing is that's been there and it's kind of ballooned, right? Because I think that's an effect, not the cause. I think club expanding their length is also an effect, not a cause. In my opinion, the cause is there's a demand for families and athletes to get as many reps as they possibly can. They may not necessarily understand the detriment, right, that it may be causing by overuse, specifically in younger athletes, compounded with they're also in high school seasons in volleyball, but they're also potentially multi-sport athletes that are doing all these things plus club on top of it. So multiply your jumps and your movements and all those things by a ton more. There's a lack of physical overall like PT around injuries or just preventative stuff. I mean, all those things compile, but I honestly think that clubs are the season itself and clubs in their financial structure, they're just a derivative of the demand that is out there in the marketplace, right? I mean, there's so much. I mean, Frank, you guys are in your facility. If you put something out there, it's going to fill. I mean, people are wanting to get in the gym. Is that the best thing for that athlete? It may or may not be, right? But I think it becomes, to your point, is the main thing the main thing? Yeah, but the main thing of it being the athlete and what they're wanting to develop, their view of what they want is also what the effect is happening.
And it may not even be their view as much as parents' view for
perspective.
The cost that I'm putting into this. I want to see this value.
100%.
Which is these tournaments or these many touches. But they don't know that that's not what they should want.
Yeah,
that's my point. That's my point.
And I am not against at all shortening the season up. I want to make sure I say that because that'd be great. That's great for our coaches who are coaching that long. It's great for us on the admin side to get a break. I would say there is a couple pros to it being the way it is right now. Is at least in our market where 80% of our kids are multi-sport. We get to space our events out where we can manage our kids playing basketball and running track and playing softball, where if things were shortened down, do those events start conflicting more with their school stuff? And then what kind of pressure does that put on them to be able to do both? So that part's kind of nice. And, we'll have kids who are, basketball players who are missing a lot of things in the early parts of the year, but then they get to be super heavily involved in the end part of the the season. So that's only, it's one advantage of having a longer season. There's more opportunities to do other things if you're a club that is like cool with that. And like we're always gonna be cool with that just because of our market. We're in a small area, small schools. I'm not against it though.
I mean, I think July,
but we have so many families who are so excited about being able to go fly somewhere or go to Orlando and hang out on the beach and then play volleyball, and these families get to actually take a vacation out of the year.
Like, if they weren't playing this tournament, they wouldn't have the time to go do that.
I don't know.
If club volleyball is over, like just because AU's is in Orlando, that doesn't mean it should exist in July.
They're probably going to college camps instead,
which now they're not going to at all. Which I think is another issue with the current system as is if you think about what this athlete has or the actual window that they have post nationals, pre when you can go on visits and start high school, like that is a little bit less than a month to visit schools that you've been communicating with, go on college visits. It's just not a very long time for the biggest decision of your life to that point. You know what I mean? If we ended in May, then you have the rest of May, June, and July to really get a good picture on what you want at that next level. You've been to 3 or 4 camps. You've been to multiple campuses on visits and different things. I just think it is a much better, more educated decision that gets made at the end of that period than the ones that get to go on one campus or commit before they even get to visit a campus. And that is like part recruiting calendar stuff of when we can communicate to kids and when they can visit and that. But right now it does not work with the club volleyball season. And there has to be some kind of correlation between the two, I feel like, because a lot of clubs are using recruiting as the thing to drive membership or to create value for parent groups in their club, is saying, look at our alumni base, look at all these kids that we've sent to college. They don't get to college if they're not at the tournaments that we're at and getting to campus and doing the thing. So like, I get it, but are you putting the athlete's best interests in the forefront of how we're going about this?
Does that best interest of that athlete change on what age group that they are? So, for example, they've already made the decision on 18s, which again, the why for 18s was just.
Yeah, I would love to talk about 18s because I think is history going to repeat itself, right? So, I'm 10 years in, right? And so I think for as long as I've been a club director, 18s has always been kind of early. But were you guys around coaching club when that shift happened? And like, why did that happen?
Well, it's because, the numbers in 18s were dwindling because of the fact that there was nothing to play for anyway because it was during the summertime and most kids were reporting early anyway.
Yep.
So it just became 18s was kind of a practice team almost. Like you played some tournaments, but there really wasn't anything to play for. Mm-hmm. It was staying live, staying, ready and all those stuff until you went and you reported early. Now, and I think USA saw that is like the numbers started dwindling. So
for sure, the registrations at nationals started declining. Top teams started pulling. There was a lot of that piece. Like it was just nationals at 18s wasn't a thing anymore that warranted its own same weekend along that.
So it was really the clubs that
it was the players. Well, ultimately, it's probably the colleges talking to the players,
right? And
then players deciding or them just being at a point in their playing career where they're like, I'm not playing in college, so I'm done.
I'm going to focus. I already committed.
Or I'm already committed, and I'd rather just go
to prom or all these things. Yeah, I mean that's a real thing because
prom is real. Prom is a real.
It's a real thing.
It is real.
So like, I think that so they made that change, right? They're like, all right, hey, numbers are dwindling here in July. We're going to move it to May, and then people can play for something. They can still do the things that they want to do. There's flexibility there. They qualify early. So all the qualifiers that they were having were all these events in high school that they wanted to skip anyway or wanted to skip the tournaments anyway in 10, 12 years ago.
Yep. So it started on the club side first. It was the clubs that essentially influenced the change and why USA was like, we need to probably change this.
It was the
Well,
players.
I'm sure it came down to a bottom line
Yeah,
of
for
those
sure.
nationals. Like, we're not making
The club's
the
not,
margins
club's
that we
not
need
registering.
now.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
now
So that's the driver, right?
Yeah.
The financial implications are for sure going to be the driver in any big change that happens to a real format adjustment from where we are now.
Was there any
The issue is there's not a ton of incentive to cut it short. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right
exactly.
now, because the financial implications are like, here, run this at the current thing and you'll be at X number. And if you don't, you're going to be at X number, which is significantly lower.
Well, wait, what happened in real life though is that the change happened because of the need and the numbers. But what happened with USA Volleyball, it actually parlayed them to double their money because the court space that they had already in the 18 space that was dwindling, they just move it to May, have another court space. Now they ballooned the tournament where it used to be open National American. Now it's open National American stripes,
Freedom,
aluminum,
liberty, patriot.
whatever else. So, but
the most patriotic words you can think of.
so
freedom?
America.
And America bracket, yeah. But that I think, again, back to the why, right? It's to feed the pipeline, which again we all love USA Volleyball, and love to watch our athletes participate and be successful in the Olympics, et cetera. But that 18s model, maybe from 15s down, can be in July because their bodies are still able to take some of that again. Again, I'm just trying to, what is the happy medium, right? Is that
I think like
16, 17, 18 so that they can get the summer off from a usage, but also from a college camp, blah, blah, blah.
any major landscape changes in club volleyball, as long as I've been around club directing, it's been led by clubs. It's been led by a few big clubs making significant changes and then everyone following that. JVA, right? Great example. Like JVA happened because these major clubs, major Midwest clubs combined forces and were like, we're going to start these events and because all of our clubs are in it, there's going to be great exposure because college coaches want to watch these kids and you other clubs who sign up can also benefit from that, right? Sure. So I think there's no doubt that people would have to react to that if you saw some major metropolitan city clubs be like, hey, we're going to start our own nationals.
But they would lose so much money to do that. Like, there's no incentive for them to do that unless you have the athlete's best interest as the primary focus.
Who would lose money? The clubs?
If the giant clubs that it would take.
If they're the ones hosting it, they'll make that up, right?
No.
If they're the ones hosting the nationals,
you think about it, they're the ones. So a giant club. I don't want to name names. Let's say they have 70 teams.
Yeah.
Okay, 70 teams that you are now cutting a month and a half from your season of training, tournament costs, actual fees. That is so much money that they are going to lose off of.
I'm talking about like 12%, 13%.
For sure.
Yeah. We're talking about millions of dollars that you are now down just from shortening the season.
Mm-hmm.
No one's in a position where they can just make $1 million less than what they did and just be like, oh, yeah, no, we're fine. You know what I mean? So what's it going to take for the change to actually happen? Or is it ever going to happen? Or are we just, this would be a great ideal for our athletes in the future, and let's just keep it up here as this ideal that never actually happens because money is the most important thing in our sport right now. You know what I mean? I don't know how okay I am with that, but I'm on the outside looking in right now. I'm sure if I'm on the inside, I feel the financial implications a little bit more real than me just being rosy-cheeked and hard-eyed, being like, I wish everybody could be done in May. You know what I mean? But I do. I do wish everybody could be done in May. I think it'd be better for the athletes as a whole. Like, can we just reel everything back in and keep the main thing the main thing? Probably not, but
it's hard,
this
man.
is where I want to be.
There's so many kids that want to play, so many new kids that want to play, so many kids who are being inspired by these pro leagues.
And 8 months isn't enough time for them to play? The kids that are going to want more are always going to want more. They're going to go get more.
There's no one saying that I'm tired of playing in our gym.
And that was my point on demand.
They're
right?
not.
Is I think how we can do we need to offer them something different to replace that demand, right? You know, is it, do we spend more time with the IQ space? Do we spend more time with just the education part of it? Around mental toughness? Is it about physical training? I mean, and I think that becomes a movement, right? That's not just, hey, someone top down is making that change because we think it's a good idea. Because to your point, it's $1 billion industry that's driving it. But I think it's more grassroots on like, how can we club by club by club, like, is there a better way, right? Is there
I think the better way is determine if nationals is really important or not.
I agree.
Because if you don't do nationals, you can end in May.
Agreed.
And be done. You know what I mean? When I started coaching club, our philosophy was to not do nationals because we didn't like how far it extended the season and what it did for our multi-sport athletes that were trying to play softball over the summer and all these different things. If that's like in the same way that the 18s model got changed because clubs had to drop out, if there's a buy-in into nationals isn't important, and college coaches have seen you already. If you go to 4 qualifiers, I guarantee I've seen you play. You know what I mean? Rather than I got to see you this one more time in June. That's not going to be the make or break decision of your college recruitment. So if clubs prioritize the development, maybe we just offer practices or small group stuff throughout May if they want extra, but we're like done with organized club. Is that bad? Or is that the potential that enough people jump into that and we then get nationals change?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, is that the method that can actually lead to change? Is enough clubs being like, nationals aren't actually important. Like, it's cool to have a wrap up last whatever in a fun place, which is why people go to AAUs or JOs. But like, does that really matter?
And I think right now they're using it as a recruitment for good club athletes to advance their club. Right? There's a
right. We finished at
blah blah blah
nationals,
and I think that's if you pull up clubs' front pages, their actual home pages. I mean, they're going to see their stats on what they did last year, and again, until the selection of club has less to do with the performance of the club, the actual wins and losses, and the trophies that are in the case, and more about a connectivity with the philosophy of the club having the main thing. I think you're going to see that kind of be this vicious circle that it almost becomes. You know, and Frank has said this, you do what you have to do to continue to be relevant, and then you can serve and have your vision and your philosophy and have that upon the athletes that you have. If you don't have athletes in your club, you don't have any influence. And right now, unfortunately, those wins, losses, trophies in the case are what's driving a lot of those decisions that they're making. So I think that's why I'm saying, like, there's some level of grassroots movement to say, all right, this is our philosophy, and it may get someone's going to have to be. There's a really good TED Talk out there around starting a movement, and it starts with a guy, and he is at some concert or whatever, and everyone's sitting down on a blanket.
I think I've seen this.
And the guy is just dancing a fool, like living
by himself,
living his best life.
Mm.
And everyone's staring, kind of laughing a little bit, kind of like, look at this guy. And then another guy jumped in. And then another guy eventually jumped in. And then in 5 guys, and then 10 people. Then all of a sudden, the entire concert was acting a fool, dancing, having a blast, not caring. But he started a movement because he was willing, able, confident enough in whatever was going to happen that's what was his decision. He was convicted in that decision.
I think the interesting takeaway from that video is like it's about the first mover, right? The one who actually goes, but without
the second
person, nobody joins.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like we need a bigger prominent club to take this stance, and then we need another bigger prominent club to jump on board, and then it can build. But yeah, that's that's an interesting one because it's like the second mover is the one that creates
Exactly
the actual
right.
change through that.
And then it just snowballs, right? But I think, I mean, to bring it all the way back is just there's so many influencers to stay away from the main thing. And if you really want, if you take a step back and you want the main thing to be that these athletes, the best interest of the athlete themselves, then you have to be willing to say, I'm okay with whatever comes with that.
You not making as much money.
Correct.
Is just say it. You have to be okay not
You have to
making
be okay
as
enough
much
money. Yeah. Yeah. And then start a movement. And then you may be able to make that money back later on because of the fact that things have changed and you have the ability to continue to develop or make it in a different way, right? Like I said, be an innovator. But
Every volleyball gym space is different. So if you cut your season short a month, or maybe you start your season a month later, maybe you're starting in January now training instead of in December. So it's still a shorter season. There's still ways to do things in your gym where you don't have to, suffer financially, so you can keep your doors open, so you can keep doing volleyball. Youth camps, youth leagues, getting more kindergartens involved in the sport, doing some fun stuff with them. There's no denying overuse. Like, we all know that. I think all great club directors know that that's going on. And I think it's on the club, at least in this current day, to not practice 3 times a week. Just go twice a week. Give spring breaks. Give a longer Christmas break. Let your kids play multi-sports. I think there's things that we can still do now to help balance out what's going on by the time they graduate. And we're just talking about the kids that are playing college, right? So that's what's the percent on that? That's
4% of all
so
volleyball youth participants.
Clubs,
something like that.
I think clubs are also trying to manage, depending where your club's from, they're trying to manage the kid who is going to be done playing volleyball after club.
that's fair.
And nationals is really fun. It's the one time a year where you get to play kids potentially from a complete opposite coast of the country. The one time you'll maybe ever get to connect with someone like that. So I think there's a lot of really good things that can change. And I think there's things today that we can do to make kids healthier and allow them to have more breaks within the season. And maybe some of that is just starting later too.
Yeah, agreed.
Nah, I don't like starting later because it's still that point of the summer. Like, the time crunch in the summer is still the time crunch in the summer. My biggest issue is they need more time in the summer. It's nice outside.
Marc wants to run college camps. Marc wants to run college camps.
I already run my college camps. I need people to come to them.
Run some Christmas camps.
Well, we can't do that. We can't do clinics outside of the summer. Another NCAA rule ever changing, but now we are strictly refined to June, July from where we can run camps.
Well, that'd be an interesting thing to flip the script, right? Is a lot of different people can be that first dancer, right, or that second dancer.
Yep.
If NCAA was like, you can only do your camps in Christmas or December, January, there's no events happening probably. At least for the top teams, they're all going to be doing college camps probably. Right? Is that crazy to say?
Or I would say they will host their own college camp and try and get coaches to come to it, which is
the clubs
much less beneficial for an institution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Really good comment.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the point is that, I think continuing to push the status quo and ask the tough questions and have, tough, conversation relative to what's the real focus and what's the driver. That doesn't mean that what clubs are doing are wrong, or I just think that we continue to evolve as a volley community, and can we continue to educate? Can we continue to think differently and innovate to make sure that the main thing is the main thing while everyone still eats too? Like, there's some level of collaboration that I think can happen between the NCAA, USAV, JVA, AAU, clubs, athletes, and parents. Like, everyone has a why, and how can we get the best outcome out of those whys?
I'm not like a college volleyball historian when it comes to what the schedules used to look like, but I would assume that you played the same number of matches just about every year for the last, I don't know, how many years?
Yeah.
So,
divisions change with the number, but yeah, it's about the same.
So there's always been consistency there from program to program and what the athletes do when they do play in college. But yeah, on the club side, it's so dependent on the club, what you're doing, what that schedule looks like. It's so varied.
Yeah, it could be 5 days a week and tournament weekends. It could be 2 days. Like the demands are definitely different club to club, and that it makes it hard. The only thing you can uniformly limit it is time.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only thing that you can across the board make it equal for everybody. This is the time frame that you have. And that's it. And then what you do in it is totally up to the clubs.
Yep. Yeah.
Totally agree. Well, great discussion. We can bring this one back also, I think in different type of forums, but I think I'd love to hear some comments, obviously. So hit us up at Triple Blockheads on any of the socials on some of your thoughts on this topic. Shout out to TED Talk. I honestly use that in my job, that video. I just think it's so powerful. It really is.
This is a super good video.
It is a great
Everybody
video.
should check it out.
Check that out.
Is there an original TED to TED Talk? Who's TED?
Man, don't ask me.
Come
on now.
We'll edit
I don't
that
know
out.
this.
We'll edit that out.
I don't know these answers.
All right. With that being said, all right, check us out at our socials. Until next time, y'all.
Just pick side, Frank.
Pick a side, Frank.
I want that side.
Blockhead.
Blockheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Triple Blockheads. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode.